14 of my running backs that I had inside of the top 24 finished inside of the top 16 on the week, pending Monday Night Football. All sorts of news to break down. It wasn't the best week for the running back position, but our stars hit. So let's start looking towards week 10. We've got the Bengals, Dallas, Kansas City, and the Titans all going on by. This past week, we had CMC, Rico Dowdle, Kyle Monangai, Josh Jacobs, and Ashton Genty finish inside of the top 10 with some surprise guys like Chris Rodriguez, Terrell Jennings, Ty Johnson, and Britton Brown all finding their way inside of the top 24. That I'm betting no one predicted that. But it's time for us to talk about who could be inside of the top 24 this coming week in week 10, where we've got some big names going to be out, but it's time to look ahead here on the Face Off Sports Network. And as always, we're going to break this down into 4 separate tiers. And let's start with tier 1 here, and it's going to be the big heavy hitters. This has been the consistent group all year, and they continue to do it. Solid weeks in this tier overall. We've got Jonathan Taylor, RB1, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Devon Achane, with James Cook rounding out the tier 1. Now, I understand starting off with Jonathan Taylor, it wasn't the best week for him. Only 7.7 points on the week, 14 attempts, 45 yards, average 3.2 per carry. I mean, the targets only 2 with 2 catches and 12 yards. I understand it was an underwhelming week, but don't overreact. It's Jonathan Taylor. He's been an MVP candidate. He gets to take on the Atlanta Falcons, who are top 10 in points allowed at the running back position. So they're giving up a bunch to that. Let's see if this offensive line can get back in gear with with the Colts. They struggled this past week. They got down early and they just never really recovered. There was lots and lots of turnovers. The game kind of got out of hand. So I think they're going to get back to form. Jonathan Taylor is a must start. He's a must play. And I know that's the obvious, but I would expect big things for him. That's why I'm comfortably keeping him at the RB1 spot here. I mean, he's got multiple games of 3 touchdowns. He could absolutely do it again. But let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. Fantastic week for him. 34.3 points, 28 carries, 106 yards. You love to see that volume. I get it's a little scary long term, but right now he's an absolute bell cow. He's getting all the opportunity. The volume through the air has been fantastic. I mean, 5 catches with 67 yards. There's not much more you can say other than he's been a monster. You continue to play him. The San Francisco offensive line has been really good. Now they do take on the Los Angeles Rams, who have been a pretty good defense, pretty stout up front. They give up some of the fewest points to the running back position. They're top 10 in that regard. So you do need to manage expectations a little bit there. But Christian McCaffrey is one of those guys that's going to get so much volume, it doesn't really matter. But let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, which is my RB3. Again, a guy that didn't have the best week, 5.8 fantasy points. So I understand if you've got a little hesitation with how to feel about him or this Dallas running back room. But hey, guess what? They get to take on the Washington Commanders, who are currently getting destroyed by running backs. I mean, if you watched the Sunday Night Football game against the Seahawks, I get it. They're getting torched through the air. But this Lions team is going to do whatever they want. They're going to run all over the place. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I would expect both to have a touchdown. Montgomery coming off a week where he had 9 carries for 25 yards. I get the volume isn't great there. Another game where it kind of got away from them. They got in a hole early. They started having to throw the ball. Time got against them, and the Vikings did enough, just to their credit. I mean, they did enough to survive that game and escape with the win. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to bounce back in a better way in a really good matchup against Washington, who's been getting killed by running backs. And I told people this last week, Kenneth Walker was someone I wanted to start. I understand he didn't get the touchdown. He got it close a couple times, had some big plays that blew open for him. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to really exploit this Washington defense as they kind of start to crumble now. But let's talk about Bijan Robinson, which is my next running back in this first tier. Another guy that's got a very consistent week ahead of him. I mean, he does take on the Colts. That's a tougher defense, but 17.6 points this past week, 12 carries for 46 yards, average 3.8 per carry. Not terrible there. He's had better days, but he continues to have that insane volume. I mean, 8 receptions, 50 yards, had 10 targets. You absolutely love to see that. He's just a guy that is going to get his no matter what. So this offense runs through him. I get Drake London had the touchdowns, but it could easily be Bijan running those in. Devon Achane here at my running back 5 takes on the Buffalo Bills. So not the best matchup, not the worst matchups. The Bills have been giving up some points to the running back position, but they're still a stout defense, and Miami is frankly not good. But Devon Achane, if anything, has been something we've talked about on this channel a ton as the guy who survives through not only the volume, but the volume through the air. I mean, 10 targets, 6 catches for 39 yards. That's all you need to know. He's getting the opportunity. They're swinging out to him like crazy, screens, everything you want to see. Now, as far as it goes on the ground, 14 carries, 67 yards, 4.8 a clip. You love to see that. I mean, at a 16.6 point week. He's pretty efficient with the ball in his hands. He finds a way to make people miss. He's really, really good in space. So Devon Achane continues to be a guy that I think lives in this tier just because he's got so much talent, despite the fact that this Dolphins offense is frankly not very good. But let's carry on. Let's talk about James Cook here to round out this final tier. Takes on the Dolphins. And, it's what we've talked about. We're targeting this team. They're giving up a ton of fancy points to the running back position. So you absolutely want to play James Cook if you have him. He's going to be a great DFS play, in my opinion. Coming off a week where he had 13.5 points, 27 attempts, and 114 yards. Great volume there. I get it. The touchdowns have got to come back, and I think they will. I mean, he had 1 catch for 11 yards, but 114 yards, 27 carries. You can't get past that, man. He's got all the volume in the world. I think he's going to be a really good play as we move through this through the rest of this season, but especially here in this week against Miami. Absolute must play for me. Going to be a DFS star. But let's talk about tier 2, and let's get to Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Rico Dowdle, Derrick Henry, Kyren Williams, and Bucky Irving. Now, this will begin our trend of each tier from here on out is going to have a guy that might or might not play. So keep that in mind as we go forward. And Bucky Irving is that guy here. But let's start with Josh Jacobs, who takes on the Philadelphia Eagles. Tougher matchup on Monday night. I get it. But at the same time, you're following the volume. Like I said, the volume is key with this running back position. Coming off a week where he had 20 points, 17 carries for 87 yards, added 4 catches for 13 yards on 5 targets. He's getting all the opportunity. He's scored touchdowns at will. If this Green Bay Packers team is going to have a successful day on offense, it's going to come with Josh Jacobs being a huge benefactor of that. So you continue to play him. You continue to use him. I get it's really easy to say that, but at the same time, I think he's a guy that could easily be in that first tier. I mean, we've seen him get the multi-touchdown games. We've seen him be consistent scoring a touchdown almost every single week. So with this Green Bay offense, I get there's been a little bit of woes there. I think they're going to be a competitive team. They're going to play Philly tough just like they always do. So let's be sure to throw Josh Jacobs in our lineup and watch the star go off. But the counterpart to that is going to be Saquon Barkley, who I have at RB8 taking on the Green Bay Packers. Tough matchup there. The Packers are really good against pretty much everything, but especially against the running back. They don't give up a ton of points there. Philly's offensive line is certainly great, and we could say that about all the teams for these running backs I've said before Saquon Barkley. But looking at Saquon, it was nice to see them get back to their old form where they were giving him the ball and giving him opportunity to kind of have some more run. I mean, it's not been an easy year for him. It's been really, really inconsistent, and I'm not naive to that fact. But the fact of the matter is this team has been really hesitant to go back to their identity, and that is simply running the ball. And I think that when we step back and look at what we're going to do with this Philly team, we got to know that that's where their success came. I mean, we saw in week 8 before the bye where he had 61% of the snaps, but he had 14 carries for 150 yards and a touchdown. Added 4 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown. That was a 31-point week. That was the first time it felt like this Eagles team was going back to their identity running the ball. So I think they're going to go back to that. Yes, they could throw the ball a little bit, but I think with this defense, they're going to have to establish the run. It's going to be a closer game. So I like Saquon Barkley this week. Some people might fade him for the matchup, but he's top 12 for me. But let's get to Rico Dowdle, who's kind of been one of those surprise players, definitely earning more and more opportunity as we work through this season. I mean, we saw what happened when Chuba Hubbard went down. Rico came in, had back-to-back huge weeks. Chuba comes back. They take away a little bit of Rico's opportunity, and they didn't do quite as well. I mean, the Carolina Panthers are a surprise winning team right now, so we have to keep in mind they have the same record as the Chiefs. No, they're not the same team, but they are the same record. And Rico gets to take on the New Orleans Saints. So a fantastic matchup there for Rico, coming off a week where he had 28.1 points, 25 carries, 130 yards, average 5.2 yards per carry, 2 catches for 11 yards. The guy's doing absolutely everything. So Rico is a must start at this point. He continues to produce despite the fact that the Panthers offense is not that good, nor is that team. But Rico has been explosive with the ball in his hands. And man, does he look like an absolute steal on that contract he's currently on. But let's talk about Derrick Henry, who takes on the Minnesota Vikings. A little bit tougher game there, but it was nice to see this Ravens team kind of bounce back a little bit. I mean, yeah, we can go around and talk about what they're doing, but at the same time, Derrick Henry had 13 points, 19 carries for 119 yards, added a catch for 2 yards. He got stopped at the 1 yard line once or twice, so that was tough to see. It was a guy that I projected to have a better week, but I think it's nice to see that this Ravens team is getting back into running the ball. Lamar Jackson back definitely elevates this offense, but Derrick Henry is a key to that. I mean, the key number here for me is 6.3 yards per carry. That's awesome. That's awesome. Basically, every time they hand it off to him, he's getting over halfway to a first down. So you absolutely want to see that, for especially this Ravens team, where we're seeing them get much healthier. The important part here is that defense gets better, so it's only going to help them get the ball back more. And then you also have some help on that offensive line. Tyler Linderbaum came back. He's one of the best centers in all of football. So I think this Ravens team is going to get hot just at the right time. So we'll continue to see them produce. And Derrick Henry is going to be a large part of that. But let's talk about Kyren Williams, the RB11 here. Kyren had a okay week. I mean, 17.4 points. It was interesting. The passing volume really wasn't there for him this past week, but he did have 25 carries with 114 yards, average 4.6 per carry. And this is something, again, we've talked about all year. Kyren Williams is just that guy that's slept on. Here he is. He's sitting at RB11 for me. You could absolutely make the case for him to be higher. San Francisco, a little bit of a tougher matchup. We'll see if they make a move here as we approach the trade deadline. Lots of rumors of them possibly adding another defensive lineman to this group, maybe a pass rusher. So that could certainly alter this a little bit, but I'm still going to play Kyren Williams. He's been really good with the ball in his hands. If the rushing touchdowns start to come back a little bit more, I think he's only going to get better. So I like Kyren in this matchup, despite it being a little more difficult. And let's close out this tier 2 with Bucky Irving. And again, this is kind of where we start the asterisk of this depends on his health. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to play. If he does play, I get the matchup against New England on paper is tougher. But I think that this Bucs team had a bye at the right time. I could easily see them coming back and Bucky Irving stepping into a much larger role. So that's one to monitor as we go throughout the week. If Bucky plays, I like him. I don't care about the tough matchup. If Bucky is out, you could slot Rachaad White certainly in the side of the top 24. I probably wouldn't put him this high given the matchup, but I do think that Bucky is the better player. So that's going to close out my tier 2. Lots of names there to talk about. Some fantasy finishes that were huge this past week. Again, the running backs weren't great overall, but the top 15 were really, really strong. I mean, again, 14 of my top 24 were inside of the top 16 on the week. So we love to see that. But let's carry on and let's get to tier 3 here. And let's start with Ashton Jeanty, Breece Hall, Jaylen Warren, Quinshon Judkins, J.K. Dobbins, and Kamani Vidal. Ashton Jeanty here to lead off this tier. Tough matchup with the Denver Broncos. That team's been really, really stout against everything. Now, that being said, Jeanty is coming off a week where he had 19.9 points, 13 carries for 42 yards, added 5 catches for 47 yards. Now, the matchup, like I said, is tough. It's also a short week. They're playing on Thursday night, so that's something to monitor. This Raiders offense suddenly came to life against the Jags, and the Jags have been a pretty good defense. A lot of that comes down to Ashton Jeanty and none other than Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers had an absolute monster game, but we're not here to talk about tight ends. Check out Tyler for that. We're talking about running backs, and Ashton Jeanty was certainly involved. He continues to be a guy that's very crucial to this offense. The offensive line is just certainly limited, and Geno Smith is not that good. So you have to keep that in mind anytime you're starting or thinking about starting Ashton Jeanty. For me, he's someone I would plug and play this week unless you're in a smaller league or you've got some big heavy hitters at the running back position. Throw him in there. Put him in your flex spot. Put him at your RB2 spot. You could certainly do worse. So I like Ashton Jeanty here, beginning at the RB2 role for this tier 3. Breece Hall is my next running back here. Tough matchup for him against the Cleveland Browns. We'll see if he gets traded in the next couple hours. So far, hasn't happened, and I also don't think it will happen. He's coming off the bye week with the Jets after their first win. I could certainly see him getting the volume again. You know, he had his best game this past week, even threw a touchdown. So you love to see that, but at the same time, you can't project that going forward. This offense is probably going to struggle against this Browns defense. The Browns are very, very good. With that being said, Breece Hall should get a ton of volume and a ton of opportunity. And if he does, I think he's going to be good for your fantasy teams. I get it. It's a little scary, but I think the floor is really high for him where he's going to give you worst case scenario, 6, 7, 8 points, maybe a little bit more if you're in a full PPR league, just given the checkdowns. So he's not going to kill you, but the upside is massive should he get the end zone, and maybe get some big plays under his belt too. But let's talk about Jaylen Warren at my running back 15. Another solid week for Jaylen Warren, 16.9 points. Gets to take on the Los Angeles Chargers this upcoming week. He had 16 carries for 31 yards. That yard per carry average is absolutely atrocious, below 2 yards. You don't want to see that, but the touchdowns are there. This offense is good just enough for him to continue to be a guy that's a startable running back too. The volume, the floor is great. He's going to continue to produce for your fantasy team, despite the fact that he's not necessarily the best running back in the league. I do think he's serviceable, and I do think that Aaron Rodgers trusts him, and that matters a ton. The running back room there is interesting. I mean, we've got Kenny Gainwell, who certainly has looked okay at times. He continues to find his way inside of the top 24, top 40, somewhere around that range, just depending on what volume he gets and if he falls in the end zone. But that being said, this team needs some help, and to be honest, Jaylen Warren's a huge part of that. So I think he's going to be another startable play, another RB2 this upcoming week. Tougher matchup, but he's going to be fine. Let's talk about Quinshon Judkins, running back for the Cleveland Browns, coming off his bye week. We'll see what happens with this team taking on the Jets. Tough matchup, like we talked about on the opposite side. The Jets are a pretty good defense up front. Lots of question marks everywhere else on that team, but I do think Judkins is a guy that's going to get plenty of volume and plenty of opportunity. We've seen him produce. He makes some big plays, so I like what he can do with the ball in his hands. You just have to give him a little bit of grace with this Browns offense because it's not that good. And, who knows what we're getting? Are we going to get the good Dylan Gabriel? Are we going to get the struggling offense that can't move the ball? Are they going to bring in one of the backup quarterbacks? I don't know. But what I do know is Quinshon Judkins is probably going to have between 15 and 20 carries and probably 3 to 4 targets. And that is volume you want because, again, with this running back position, this running back group, we're chasing the volume because those are the guys that have the most opportunities to hit a big play, most opportunities to score a touchdown, and they're racking up all those yards. And Judkins is very good at all three of those things, and he's going to continue to be very good in fantasy as we move through the season. Let's talk about J.K. Dobbins now. This is a guy that I really like starting this past week. Only 6.9 points, 15 carries for 61 yards. He continues to produce and be efficient when he does get his opportunities, 4.1 yards per carry. The touchdowns, however, not going his way right now. Went the other way, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But he does take on the Las Vegas Raiders. I like the matchup there. Denver's offense is humming. I've talked about this a couple times. He's just one of those guys I trust. He hit over the 100-yard mark a couple weeks ago. I think he can get back to that this week against the Las Vegas Raiders. And to round out tier 3 here, let's talk about Kamani Vidal taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tougher matchup there. I mean, 3 carries for 3 points on the week, 12 carries for 30 yards, no passing work. It was not great, but, with the Chargers, better days are ahead. We've got news today coming out that it doesn't look like Amari Hampton is going to be back. It looks like he's going to stay on IR until over the bye week, so week 12. And I've talked about that a little bit on our show, a little bit on here. I don't expect Amari Hampton to be back, and here we go. There's the news. So I think Kamani Vidal is going to continue to be a guy we can use, we can throw out there. You just got to be ready for these low weeks, and unfortunately, he had one this past week. But tier 4 now to round out the top 24, Travis Etienne, Tyrone Tracy, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey, and Aaron Jones. Again, we're hitting that spot of lots of asterisks in this tier here. Well, let's start with Travis Etienne. Gets to take on the Houston Texans, so a pretty stout defense there. 16.5 points on this past week. 22 carries for 84 yards, added 5 catches for 31 yards. The volume's great. The offense is just inconsistent. Travis Hunter's hitting the IR. BTJ could be out as well, so we'll see what happens with this team. I think they're going to have to lean on that run game. It's just unfortunate for them. The Houston defense is tough, so we'll see what happens. I think that Travis Etienne is going to be one of those guys you should play because he's going to get plenty of volumes, but I do think that Bashal Tutin is going to be a sneaky start this week, so keep that in mind for your DFS leagues. But Tyrone Tracy at running back 20 for me. I mean, he gets to take on the Chicago Bears, who are bleeding points to the fantasy or to the running back position, but it wasn't a great week for him. 6.7 points, 5 carries for 18 yards. So Tyrone Tracy is one of those guys where the volume might be there. He might get in the end zone. I just think he's a low end, safer floor, not really that great of an upside running back. So keep that in mind when you have Tyrone Tracy start sit decisions. And then David Montgomery at running back 21 for me. Again, just like Jahmyr Gibbs taking on Washington this upcoming weekend. Okay week for him. He had 11 points, 11 carries for 40 yards, 2 catches for 10 yards. Dave Montgomery's going to live and die by that touchdown, as we've said multiple times on this channel. But that being said, I do think that the Washington matchup is fantastic for him. They're going to absolutely steamroll Washington, and we've seen them constantly rotate drives or rotate opportunities at the goal line to give each of these running backs a score. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think both of them are going to get a rushing touchdown just if they get inside of the goal line, get inside of the red zone. We'll see these guys score. I mean, there's just no way around it. Washington's in turmoil right now. Trust me, I don't even want to talk about it. But we'll carry on. DeAndre Swift here at running back 22 is going to be the next asterisk in this group. Not sure if he's going to play. We saw what Kyle Monangai did, had a top 5 week, looked absolutely fantastic with the ball in his hands. I do think it would be really, really interesting to see if he ended up playing again, although I'm not sure that Swift is going to sit out another week. But if he does, then Kyle Monangai is absolutely someone that deserves to be shot up into one of these tiers. I mean, he's coming off a week where he had 26 attempts, 176 yards, averaged 6.8 yards per carry. I mean, had a long of 39. It just was so impressive. There's not enough you can say. 3 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Monangai was fantastic. So if he gets that opportunity, I think he's going to be one of those guys that easily bumps inside of the top 24. If Swift does play, they will split carries. They've been doing that for the last couple of weeks, so don't expect that to change. I just think we have to know that Swift will be the lead guy. They will turn it right back over to him. He's better out of the backfield than Monangai, but Monangai is a much better hammer, if you will. He is the David Montgomery in this offense, and Ben Johnson is looking for that 1-2 punch out of the running back room, and this could be it. I mean, Swift, I don't think is the best, and Monangai isn't necessarily the best, but the two of them together might be just okay. So we'll have to see how they do this upcoming week after the huge week from Monangai. But carrying on here, we've got RJ Harvey as my next running back, almost at the end of tier 4 here. Takes on the Raiders like we talked about with J.K. Dobbins. We like that matchup. He's coming off a week where he had 16.6 points, 2 carries for 5 yards, and 5 catches for 51 yards. As you can see, the touchdowns went his way. So I think that it's one of those guys where I had him inside of my top 24 before, and here he is. He's inside of the top 24 this week again. I think RJ Harvey is just a sneaky play, continues to be involved on a really good offense. So we need to keep that in mind with this Denver backfield going forward. He's going to be the RB2 in this offense. They're going to continue to rely on J.K. Dobbins more than Harvey, but Harvey is someone that can use out of the backfield, and he'll find his way in the end zone like he has so far. Into closeout tier 4, we've got Aaron Jones. Man, it was great to see Aaron Jones back in the lineup. 11.8 points, 9 carries for 78 yards, tremendously efficient, 8.7 yards, 2 catches for 20 yards. The important thing here with Aaron Jones is he was banged up during the game. So will he play? That's the question. If he ends up playing, I'm perfectly fine starting him. He's a guy that this offense trusts and, frankly, that this offense needs. So I like Aaron Jones going forward. He's certainly someone that I'm going to be relying on in a couple of leagues. So keep that in mind as we move forward. But let's talk about some waiver wire options for your team. Maybe you've got some of these guys on buys. Like I said before, just to remind you, we've got the Bengals, Dallas, Kansas City, and the Titans all on the bye week. Tony Pollard, Spears, the KC backfield with Hunt being the guy, Javonte Williams, and of course Chase Brown all not being played this week. That leaves room for Kyle Monangai, who had that huge week. He's available in just about 23% of leagues. So if he's out there, go grab him if you can. Devin Singletary available in a ton of leagues, but I don't really think this is the route I would go. Some people will certainly chase some points there. I think that Tracy might be the best player in that room. It's not saying a lot, but I'm not going to rely on this Giants offense right now. Lots of injuries all over the place. Jarrett Patterson's another interesting option given the fact that, again, we've got no Amari and Hampton, but I think Badal is going to retain that spot. And then finally, we've got Isaiah Davis available in over 60% of leagues, another guy who was getting some run alongside Breece Hall, and we'll see what happens there. But the name I would probably focus on would be Chris Rodriguez. When this team is down and out, Washington continues to rely on Chris Rodriguez. As much as I like Bill has been really, really inconsistent, and I don't think we can necessarily play him right now. He's frankly someone that we can talk about dropping, and I know that hurts me more than it hurts anyone. The Patriots running back room is just up there too. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson could be out. We've got, Travion, who had a great week, but then again, he was out snapped by guess who? Terrell Jennings. So what the heck do we do in New England? There's lots to talk about there. But that's going to do it for me. Be sure to like the video. It helps me out a ton. Subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network if you haven't already. Comment your start-sit questions in the comments below, and I will come back and answer all those. As always, we appreciate you here on the Face Off Sports Network, and we'll catch you in the